Hey friends, buckle up for a new episode of Soul Dive. You can join Christina King and myself, Chris McCann. If the time's come for you to begin or even accelerate your inner exploration, the show might be for you. Each week, we explore the meaning of life, discover what our purpose is, or just exploring how to be happy. Soul Dive has got you covered. So join us and our guests, of course, and listen to insightful stories about where they've been and perhaps get help navigating your own path. Together, we will soul dive into the deep end of consciousness. Christina King, it is so good to see your smiling face again.
Ditto. It feels like it's been a while, but also doesn't feel like a long time at all.
Well, it hasn't been any time. And yes, we haven't recorded an episode in a while. It's probably been close to 3 weeks in human terms.
Yes, definitely. We've both been doing things that we had to do.
Yes. What were you doing?
I primarily was in New York visiting my grandmother, who is the mother of my late father. And I hadn't seen her in 3 years. So that was pretty important. And that the last time I saw her was actually at my father's funeral. So big trip, and she's not getting any younger. I also saw my grandfather in New York. They are divorced, and don't think he'll be in this plane for much longer. And got some more news about him as well. So my father will be there to welcome him when his call has come up. So I've been doing the elderly tour of Long Island, New York, and now I'm back. I'm grateful to be back. You start feeling like you're 80 and 90 when you're up there and the driving. Oh my God. And they all think they're great drivers, and you can't tell them otherwise. As in elderly driving. I'm not talking about New York driving, because we do LA driving. It's very comparable. But, this was like, please, can I drive? No, I drive fine. I don't want anybody to take my license. So it's been a little wild. What about you? What have you been up to? I know it's more than 5 minutes, but go. It's probably much more interesting than my elderly tour of Long Island. Go.
There's so many things to cover, and working in reverse order. I came back Sunday night from another retreat with Dr. Warder. Prior to that, the week before, we were down on the farm with Adam and Sleepy Eye and Robin and Meredith and myself and 15 other beautiful souls at the retreat that we co-facilitated. Prior to that, I had like a good hour with Dr. Dan, had this wonderful meet and greet with this artist by the name of David DeAngelis. He designed these Starman Tarot cards. I don't know if you've ever seen those. Yeah. He's just an incredible person.
Is that the one related to David Bowie? Oh, yeah. He made those. Yeah. Oh my God. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, pretty fantastic. And then I had an hour with our dear friend and teacher, Helen, after that. And then the day after that is when I went down to the farm. Like every time I wake up, something incredible happens. It is, absolutely. Beyond the news that I just shared with you, which I'm not necessarily ready to talk about in a public forum because it's still in flight. There's been an invitation or potential invitation to go to, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. One of the things that kept coming up and talking to other folks in my own meditations was ancestors, like ancestors in all forms, from all worlds, but specifically from Eastern Europe. And my father's mother, who passed away in 1985, has been playing a prominent role in that.
Oh.
Yes. So when I sat down in front of the fireplace and was consciously connecting and asking for their guidance and help and supporting myself and the community, in that particular ceremony, it was front and center. So Eastern Europe came up there. It came up with the tarot reading. And he's like, what's going on in Eastern Europe? We're like, I don't know. Like there's this mystery. So then we fast forward to, it must have been Saturday. And this is the day after we had done some medicine. And Carlos just turned and looked at me. He's like, you like working with teenagers, don't you? I was like, yeah, sure. He's like, okay. He's like, I think I'm going to send you to Eastern Europe to go sit on this panel.
Boom.
Right. Oh. And I just started laughing. He's like, what's so funny? I'm like, well, I'll share it with you later. But yeah, so that's that opportunity. And we'll know more on Sunday if they accept me, is working with the folks, outside of Krakow, but certainly in Auschwitz-Birkenau, and working with the people that live there and working on the land. It's been pretty clear. This word or this term root worker kept showing up for me. Like, what is a root worker? And so that, of course, it made sense. Like, I'm literally.
Oh, now I like all this. When you said that word, I'm getting, I get it. I get it. I'll automatically, I'm getting what that is for you. Mm-hmm.
My father's mother's side is from that area, from outside of Krakow, and it's not too far from, Auschwitz and other places. But going back to work with the land, work with the people, that's quite impressive. We had the interesting thing about the teepee ceremony was that the person who was supposed to be the fireman, canceled or didn't show. And so going into that, what kept coming up for me was elder. I'm like, I wonder how that's going to play out going into that particular weekend. And like Adam, who you've met on the show, and he's like, I got to talk to Sleepy. He's like, I think you're ready for this. He's like, well, let me just go sit and make sure that I'm okay. And I did. And, when I connected with Spirit, and it's like, this is good for you. And I've never built a fire. I've never kept a fire, let alone one for, 10 to 12 hours inside this teepee. And it was an incredibly profound experience. The fire is a very, very strong teacher, but I mean, you're also beyond just keeping the fire going, administering medicine, checking on everyone, and you play a pretty significant role. And there are folks that wait lifetimes, right, or years to be able to do that. And I was able to go and jump right in and support. So we had an incredible experience on that particular retreat. And that Monday morning, we all gathered by the beach. We drove like half an hour from where we were. And Sleepy Eye asks, he's like, are you coming with us on Tuesday? I said, no, what makes the most sense. So Tuesday, I had an invitation to go to Arizona and sit with some elders that were coming down from other parts of North America. And I said, what really seems appropriate for me is to go home and make sure that fire is strong, right? Make sure that there's good logs, good sticks, there's good light, that Meredith is in a good spot before I, run off and go, on my next excursion. He's like, oh yeah, good one. Hey, last night I was visited by Spirit, and I wanted to ask if you'd be interested in, coming with me to sit with the elders in Machu Picchu around the equinox. And as soon as he said that, and I was like, like that entire field just came down. And I turned around, and my friend and my wife were like, what just happened? And I was like, life is going to look a lot different in a few months. Yeah.
This is so exciting to hear, by the way.
It's been an incredible couple of weeks.
I have a little bit that I'd like to say. First of all, because you said that you were the fire keeper. I mean, surprise, surprise, the provider of energy and movement. I mean, that's kind of what you do anyway. So I'm like, it's just a different type of what you do, So just wanted to make a note that that makes sense. It's not a stretch to know that you're the fire dude.
No, it's like now I have a job, right? Like that's my role within this community, which is flattering. It's not lost on me what a responsibility and privilege it is. And there's so much that I learned there. It was a bit like a sauna for a while because I just couldn't quite get it. And I was like, all right, I need to just ask Grandfather Fire, like, what's going on? Like, I need to work with this. And I was like, okay, help. I'm not getting this in a way because I could see that Adam, these guys are trying to run ceremony. And I could see like they're coming over and messing with the fire and fixing things. I'm like, I need to get this under control. So I asked the fire for help and for guidance. And the response was so obvious. Every time I say this, like, well, yeah, of course. It was like, but to keep the fire lit bright, you don't need to add more wood. I was like, oh, so this concept of more wasn't appropriate. And it was like, work with what you have, right? And all the sticks, were 3, 4, 5, 6 feet long, and they're crooked, and they have knots on them, and they're bent, and all the things. And it's like, wow, there's like no such thing as a perfect stick. But the sticks were very much representative of people, and that every one of them had its own unique personalities and hiccups, if you will, or what's they call like ticks, and just working with what you have and talking to it and just being in the flow state was a tremendous learning experience for me. And when I was talking to, my friend, he's like, it was so cool just to watch your journey over those 10 hours and how you went from fighting against it to working with it. And he's like, it was just such a cool thing to see. So I'm really excited about that.
I'm excited for you. And I feel like that's not going to be the last time that you did that.
No.
That was the training almost.
Yeah, it was like the first of many. Like that's the job. Right?
Yeah. Makes sense. Makes sense with your role and your position within the world.
Yeah. And I was just able to help. Right. So there was that, and just providing light for others to be able to do their work. And it's really given me, a sense of purpose, if you will. But then just moving around the teepee and checking in on everyone and making sure that everyone had what they needed and if they're okay, and even administering medicine, like that to me is such a natural way of operating, this being in service and of service in support of the highest good. Like, yeah. And they're like, my God, like even after the ceremony, I'm still just flying around and there's no sleep. And like, how are you doing this? I'm like, I don't know. This is just like this is like my natural state of being when this is the operation.
Wow.
Yeah. Just incredible.
So when would you go to Eastern Europe? Would that be a long-term thing? That sounds long-term.
There's a panel with this group, from what I understand. There's Jane Goodall and the Dalai Lama and some other folks. And it's really Dr. Warder. I'm not sure when it is. I'm trying not to ask too many questions because I already know that it's taking place. Right. I don't need to squeeze the baby because it's already happened or happening. Yeah. And now I just get to be pleasantly surprised. So I'm presuming that it'll be sometime early winter. I'm thinking January is what feels right, but soon.
Wow.
Yeah. And even if it doesn't happen, just to know that that's where things are going is like more.
It's so exciting.
Right.
It's so exciting. But hey, LA boy, going to Eastern Europe in January. I hope you got the gear.
Nope.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, that's an issue. That's an issue for us LA folk. We don't have gear.
Right. There's no gear. Yeah.
We're not equipped for that. So good luck to you. You're going to need some stuff.
Yes.
Wow. That's just so exciting. What does Meredith think about all this? I mean, maybe you might not want to say, but she's what?
Little deer in the headlights because things are moving fast.
I would say so.
Yeah.
but that's kind of your dynamic. It's like, you're like, oh yeah, great, great. And then she's just like, okay, I guess so.
She's like, I'm not going to tell you no.
Yeah.
Like, well, that's good, because I wouldn't accept that. But like, even with the news I shared with you earlier, it's like literally like every time I roll out of bed, something incredible seems to happen. So this concept, or this notion of being aligned and having a direction, and I don't want to say like having a purpose, but just heading in a good direction, and being in support of the highest good of all beings. Like, things like all these breadcrumbs or wonders and signs, like I'm not missing the marks, I don't think.
No. That makes sense with everything that I know about you and working with you in the past. And it's like, oh yeah, of course you're here. Where else would you be?
But the less I've been efforting, the more readily these things are coming. Right. So it's like the less I try to do, or the more have to do's I remove, it's just making space for these incredible opportunities.
I'll tell you what is happening for me. I have not been so connected beyond for, I'd say, a good month. The only times that I have been was when I was on the podcast with you. I've done not a lot. I've done some meditation, but not the channeled meditation that I usually do. This is all very self-care for the human kind of things that I've been doing, which are great. But as I sit here and talk to you and listen to you, there was a point when you were finishing your story, and I just had this thing drop into me. It's like the waiting room is full of people that want to talk to me. I'm like, oh, because I haven't done any channeling. I haven't done any. I mean, my guides are always there. They're kind of always working with me anyway, but I haven't directly had any quote business meetings with them lately. I've just kind of been freeballing it, like through life. I've been very human lately, which sucks.
Freeballing, like you're wearing a pair of white pants, sort of freeballing?
Oh, well, just, that. Just, without care, without any restraint, without any mission, just been like, no plan here. So I don't want to say I feel disconnected. I feel like I went through a phase, and I feel like the phase just dropped out, and now a new phase is entering as we're sitting here speaking, of course. Because when you said, hey, let's meet for a podcast, immediately I got some information of like, all right, here's what you need to do, like back in the office kind of deal. But they put it in such a way, I put the you have to on it as a human, but they're like not as strong with their request. So I have a feeling that after I talk to you tonight, I'm going to be like, all right, I'm going to make some dinner. And then afterwards, I'm going to open up my office hours and see what comes through, because I know there's a little bit of a wait on the other side for me.
There's a lot of energy over here as you've been talking. So what feels like is happening is some sort of an attunement that I'm participating in with you.
Oh, that would make sense. Oh, wow. I just felt that too. Okay. Well, that makes me feel less guilty about a waiting room full.
Yeah. Like, it's just like right now, I mean, I'm still from like my upper cheekbones into my jaw, and the side of my head, into my shoulders, and even into my fingertips. But specifically like this area right here is very active right now.
Yeah, it's my upper torso as well. Yeah, definitely. So maybe perhaps I feel like maybe some of the good things that you did are coming to me in some way. Like I need some of this information that you're giving me. So this is good. All right.
Yeah. So let's talk about it, because this feels important. in working with Carlos is nothing short of mind-blowing. And a lot happened on this journey for me. And he's just incredible. The group that he had pulled together for this particular retreat was incredible. And I had some journeying done for sure. And what was unique about this opportunity for me relative to other ones, is that I didn't get stuck anywhere and I wasn't attached to anything. And I was like, okay, this is wonderful. What else? There's a master class in humanity. And with the overarching premise, I know people are rightfully concerned about the state of the environment and Mother Earth, but I'm pretty convinced that Mother Earth would be okay. It's really about humanity. I know that we've talked about this before, and that we have to work on saving ourselves first and putting our own oxygen mask on before attempting to assist and save other people, let alone the planet. And what was abundantly clear was trying to build a case on why does humanity deserve to actually be here? Because we're failing big time and not being good stewards of the planet, of each other, of ourselves. Why do we deserve to be here? And I could use your insights here because I haven't allowed myself a lot of time to process, but it was abundantly clear to me that one, I'm not fully in human form, and this ability to go back and forth between dimensions was very palpable for me. But I kept zooming out and seeing Earth and being sick energetically, and zooming in to masses of human population. And what I kept hearing was, I am. It's like, what is this? It's like, well, it's the great I am. I'm like, okay. And so then I'm in Niger, and I'm in Sudan, and I'm in Yemen, and I'm in Poland, and I'm in Mississippi. I'm in, it felt like the markets in Cartagena. I'm in a lot of interesting places where people were suffering, and it was as if the population had just had enough. It was like, I am. It was like this charge of folks self-determining that they deserve to be seen and heard. And then like, I am, we are, and I would hear this in other languages. Like, estoy, nosotros estamos, and like it was really interesting. And it was like, well, okay. And how much of this is my ego? Because it felt like there was something I'm supposed to do with this. And like, what's my role in all of this? Like, am I supposed to like build some sort of a Bob Geldof or Bono like nonprofit and start this movement? And it was like, well, yeah, if not you, then who? And I was like, okay, that's interesting. I was like, well, how do we do it? And we came back to a quantum perspective. And if everything that exists in a material sense is really just frequency, energy, and vibration that's been observed and made manifest, then every human that's out there, regardless of their own self-opinion, someone, somewhere, something, somehow determined that you are worth existing because you're being observed. There's value there. There's beauty. Your worth, your existence here is deserved because you're being seen. Otherwise, you don't exist. And it's like, okay, so let's make that really simple for a guy like Chris. What does that mean? It's like, well, when you talk to someone and you look them in the eye and just ask them, like, how are you? And see where that goes. because just being seen by someone or seeing someone and giving them an opportunity, and particularly in these times of, factionalization or being disenfranchised or alone or on your devices or all the above, and just taking a moment to ask someone how they are is almost enough to begin to change the vibration of our civilization. There's no guarantee that we're going to be here as a species in 300 years or less. I do think that there's a way for us to avoid blowing up the planet, and that would require some external interference. I don't see that happening. But from where you're sitting, and I'd never thought of it this way, like, what value do we bring? Why do we deserve to be here?
So I got a couple of images. The first one was right after you were speaking about how we're terrible stewards of Earth. And I got kind of a feeling of relax. It's bad, but not in the way that you think. And it's different. And then I saw Earth as a whole, like as a big globe almost. And I could see it as Earth, and I could see everything moving on it the way it should. But in the oceans, I saw swirl movement, and I saw different kind of, I don't want to say portals, but portals, like areas of the Earth that they take care of a lot of the damage that we have done as humans. Mm-hmm. Not all of them, but some of it, So I got kind of a feeling of like, yeah, this is kind of the story of Earth that is playing out. It kind of makes sense in that kind of way. Yeah, it stinks what we're doing. But at the same time, it's oddly normal and scripted. Mm-hmm. Okay. Second thing, I wrote down role, because you were talking about what's my role and all this. I heard different languages of I am. And I just wrote the two words, understanding and perspective. That's where you are right now with what this is understanding and perspective. And I think that there's a larger message in there, because it's not just about you understanding and you having the perspective. It's kind of a domino effect where if you can understand and see it, that in turn will be passed on to the next person. And that's really what's most important. So you did hit the nail on the head when you said just being seen is enough to start changing things. And then I was reminded of a conversation that I'd had, I don't remember with who, but about how healing really works. Yeah, there's active healing, but then there's also passive healing that you don't acknowledge all the time. Just by having a conversation with somebody 5 years ago, you change the trajectory of their life. Mm-hmm. So they want to focus on this passive healing of when you are seeing someone and you're listening and they feel seen and they feel heard. That happens. That is something that you're clued into, but not everybody is. So with this understanding and perspective in relation to that, it's a pretty powerful concept, yet so basic and so simple. So you're on the right track. And then your last question, which was the one you really asked me, but I had to tell you all that other stuff. Can you remind me what it was again? Because I didn't write anything except for understanding perspective.
From where you sit, why does humanity deserve to be saved? Why do we deserve to be here?
I just got, we won't always be here. Huh? We weren't always the original. We're not the originals either. I mean, we're not the originals. And true to the TV shows, we're not the only ones. And I'm seeing glimpses of like ancient Egypt with the beyond coming through. And other glimpses as well, which it's just to show me that a little bit of evidence in the other dimension that this has occurred. So we weren't the first, humans weren't the first. We're just the current game. And I'm seeing almost like board games on a shelf. Like, oh, well, okay, we'll get rid of this one. That one's, we've already learned from what we needed from this one. Like, for example, dinosaurs, which is a human example. Oh, dinosaurs. Now, here's some humans. Let's get started on that. And we're actually in the middle of it. Really in the middle of it. We're in the middle of the whole game at the moment. So this is going to continue. This is not the end of times at all, I'm getting. But this will continue for some time the way we are. So, you know, in our perspective, because we're only in this life, shit just got interesting when we had, as Americans, President Trump, who stirred, I mean, whether or not you like him or you hate him, he definitely stirred the pot. Definitely. And then you had the coronavirus, the global pandemic, and everything as you knew it kind of changed. And now we're living in this weird reality where it's like, will this ever end? Will it ever officially end? So it's like, just in 2 years, things have changed. But in the bigger picture of it, if you look at Spanish flu at the beginning of the 20th century, they also had this period of doom and uncertainty and backlash and like, and that was just an example of not like, oh, it's a recurring thing. Not at all. It's always different, but it always changes the game. So are we deserving as flecks of God? We're absolutely deserving of being a human. Are we deserving of the opportunities that are presented in front of us, of our situations? Well, I see two perspectives on that. The first one is, of course, you contract in to experience several things, if not more than that, right? But the other perspective is, and give me a minute, I don't know how to word this up. Sorry, I'm just getting a lot of interference right now. Hold on.
In the waiting room.
I just verbally, like visually went into the waiting room and was like, shh, I will get there when I get there. Can you guys just please stop the chatter? Because you will be heard at the end of it. And you know what? You know who's in there?
Ooh.
Richard Ramirez, the serial killer.
Oh.
I can tell he's trying to follow up with me. Like, why haven't you finished my piece yet? Because, you know, I channeled him, right?
Right.
And I put it aside. Okay. He's one of them. And I think that's the cause of the trouble. Okay. Hold on.
Probably.
Not in a menacing when are you going to talk about me? When are you going to finish my story? Okay. So I said one perspective, get back on track here, which is we're contracted. But the second, are we deserving of the beautiful things on earth? The beauty of earth. Absolutely. I'm also getting that. And I'm getting that because it's there. I'm getting that if you can realize it, if you can realize that it's there for you, then it's for you. Some people never, ever go into the Rocky Mountains, but people that have been to the Rocky Mountains, they feel as if they're connected with the Rocky Mountains. And they feel as if they could, at some parts, it's almost a religious experience being in the Rockies. Do you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So do they deserve to be in the Rockies? Absolutely. Because
they're there.
Because they're there. Yep. So from those two perspectives, sorry, it took me shutting up the waiting room to get there. But yeah. That's my download of that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Because I'm not nearly as fatalistic about it as I was before this past weekend. And when every living being or entity on the planet was declaring their self-worth, like I am, there was and then I was back out in space and I'm watching Earth with my ET buddies, and the planet emitted a vibration. It reminded me of a nuclear bomb going off, so to speak, where the bomb goes off, but then the waves extend from the flashpoint. And it was like that. Like, it was silent, of course, because it's space. Like, I'm not sure how that happened, but I could just see it go. And at that point, we alerted the cosmos that we had awakened. And it's like, well, it's one of two things. We either blew ourselves up or we awakened. And Carlos is like, well, either way, we returned to light. It's like, yeah, like that's pretty true. Like, that's two sides of the same coin. Like, we'll get there one way or another. It's really interesting.
I don't think we're there yet.
Oh God, no.
I don't even know if it'll be in our lifetimes, Chris.
Nope.
And that's not what that's what I'm getting, is just like, I mean, we have beings like humans right now waking up, but it's not a collective whole. Absolutely not. While you're speaking all of that, I got a couple of glimpses kind of through your eyes of what you were seeing, like at that moment, which was really interesting. But I also got that Earth is not the only playing field.
Nope.
Which we already kind of knew, like you and I, but at the same time, I got a glimpse of it, and it's like, well, where is it? It's like, humans can't see it. That's part of the joy of it. It's like right over there. It's just in a different place, and you can't see it.
Right. Well, that's the other part of that experience, was being able to operate in multiple fields or realms or dimensions simultaneously. Mm-hmm. Very clear. Right. And it was so beautiful, and being able to experience and see that. Like, where did some of these civilizations go? Well, they just ascended, right? So they're still here. They're just on a different vibrational level. That's also been my experience with these different entities. They're here, but most of the time we can't see them because we're not conscious enough or aware enough to be able to see them and experience them. But there are moments that I have where I'm in a non-medicated state where I do work with them and I do have experiences with them. And my understanding of it now is it's more of a state of awareness than it is looking for a little metal thing flying around in the sky. These entities or these beings don't fit the mold in which we may have conjured. There were 3 of them that I saw on Friday as I was watching the sunset, and it was as if they almost had their backs turned as well and were watching all of this. And the immensity of these beings, I can't really describe because the fields weren't synonymous. Right. So the scale wasn't there, but they were immense, like stories tall. And we watched the sunset together, and like they were as much there and present and doing the same thing that I was. We were just together. They didn't look like little gray beans or anything like that. It was just different form. It was stunning. Right. So as my own awareness has continued to expand, my relationship with these different entities and or energies is also expanding, and it's less in my imagination. I'm in bed Wednesday night when I got down to where Carlos is, and we stay in the house that we rent, and I'm laying there reading a book, not really tired, but knowing that I should fall asleep. And I hear Carlos right here, like in my right ear, like loud. He's like, okay. He's like, I got some stuff to do. He's like, so can you put down the book, please? I'm like, no, like I'm reading. Like it's just like he's like in talking, like in talking in like an angry way, like or frustrated, like I got stuff to do. Like, would you please put the book down? And I'm like, it's just my imagination. And then I feel like my hair being played with. And I was like, all right, fine. I was like, all right, I'll put the book down. I put it down. He's like, thank you. He's like, you're not the only person I have to serve tonight. and the first part of that sleep was incredible. So the next day when I saw him, and I wanted to validate the experience a little bit, and I gave him a hug and said good morning, and he's like, thank you for your help last night. He's like, yeah. He's like, you're really active, and I just wanted to make sure that you're able to get some rest. It's like, okay, so not my imagination.
Wow.
Like, and it's incredible that he's able to do that. But it's also incredible that I'm able to bear witness to it and have this dialogue. And so I had a chance to catch up with him before I left Sunday night. And my question to him was, if it's appropriate at any point, would you be willing to share with me how it is that you're able to serve in that way? And he said, because when I go to sleep, I know that I'm working, but I don't always know what I'm working on. And I would like to be more conscious of it. And he's like, well, maybe that's when you're really awake. And I said, okay, noted. How do you do it? He's like, it's just lucid dreaming. It's like, really? Yeah. And he's like, yeah. He's like, you do that anyway. He's like, but really, he's like, focus. And I was like, oh, okay. So if I come tickle your balls later on tonight, Christina, it's because I'm, playing around with,
my free balls.
Yes. I'm just playing around with these new skills.
Well, tonight would be the night to do it, because if you want to pop in the waiting room with the other clowns, that's fine. See what's going on, and I don't know. I don't know what they want. I don't know who they are or what they want, but.
Oh, you'll love this. I thought of you. I didn't realize it until after. And the beauty of, having worked with you and will continue working with you is, some of the insights. And at one point early in the journey with Carlos, I found myself dancing topless to Chopin. But I was dancing like full into like, wow, I can't believe I'm in human form and I'm able to fully express. And like I was dancing across the estate. Yes. And I remember you telling me at some point, like if you have a chance to, like you saw me dancing and like it was important. If I had a chance to dance, then that was to go ahead and do it. Do you remember that?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. No, it makes sense. Yeah. But I don't remember that particularly.
Yeah. Like full on topless dancing to Chopin.
Well,
No way. It's from Eastern Europe and Polish. I mean, not that there's any coincidences, but
I'm sure that at the time you were like, what the heck is she talking about? And now it's like, oh, yes, that's good.
I actually knew how to dance.
Yeah, I was right.
I was twerking to a nocturne. I was like,
Hope there's no video evidence of that.
I wish there was. It'd be funny to see.
Yeah.
I mean, it was because I had the wherewithal to record about an hour and 40 minutes worth of dialogue, and some of it is indistinguishable, but some of it was really funny. And at one point, I was singing. So my intention, what I boiled it down to, was like just drop all the bullshit and surrender into this unknown state. Like just I surrender, fully surrender. And then at one point, I'm listening to the tapes when I'm driving back Sunday night, and I hear surrender, surrender, not even a bad word. Surrender, surrender. It's not even a dirty word.
Wow. what a ride home.
Right. I was like, what the fuckity fuck? Like I was like bought into this non-surrendering. The Dukes of Hazzard played a very prominent role, which was really interesting. I was provided with this experience of when I was like maybe 7, 8, 9 years old, which would have been when the Dukes of Hazzard television show was around. And it was like I had some of the same candy was there. I had this lunchbox, like all of these things like that were just meant to evoke like this particular moment in my life. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. It's so cool. And I'm like, but it's like not. It's like missing something. Like what is this? And I at one point I had gone to refill my bottle of water, and I walk in, and Carlos and Carolina are in the living room or whatever space they were in, and they're like, "How's it going?" And I was like, "It's exquisite." And he's like, "What's exquisite?" And I was like, "This isness of life." And they just started smiling. I'm like, okay, go lay back down.
Wow.
But this like essence in what makes being human worthwhile, this divine spark, right? These tangible yet ethereal qualities of human experience and life experiencing itself in a very loving way. Like it was really, really cool. So I didn't get stuck with Daisy Duke, right? Because as cool as that experience was, it wasn't real. And I just kept asking like, well, what's beyond that? Like, what else? What else? Don't get stuck. Don't get attached. There was a moment where and I was having these experiences or epiphanies or learnings around isness. And then these beautiful little purple jewels appeared on Carlos and Carolina because they were in my visionscape. And there's like a sense of like, it almost felt like leveling up. Like there was like, oh, okay, like you kind of have gotten to this level in your journey. And it was like, wow, like I could totally stay here. Like this is a beautiful state to be in. And it's like, but don't get attached. Like what else? What else is there?
Oh,
yeah. And not getting attached to any of it. And just what else? What else? As Carlos would say, he's like, it's great. You're going to meet people. You'll have experiences. You're going to see things. It's like, but keep on trucking, man. Like keep on trucking is going to be my next special work t-shirt.
Like, you need a trucker hat with it.
Yes, totally. Just keep on trucking.
There used to be a song, ooh, keep on trucking. It was either just a commercial or a Southern thing.
Oh.
I don't know.
We'll find it. Yeah. So there's a lot there came up for me, a lot around the arts and the creative process. And how artists and some are having a really difficult time being able to get their work out there and express. This was really interesting. One thing that was really interesting that came up was, what freedom is this notion of being able to say in a public way, like, I have an idea, and being able to actualize it or have a conversation around it, which was really interesting. But as I had all these experiences, like my initial instinct is like, okay, great. Like, what are we going to go do? What are we going to build? Like, let's get, and it's like, yeah, no.
Just keep the plate clean and keep the energy flowing. Yeah. That's working for you.
Yes.
I remember when we first started working together, or I started working with you, or whatever you want to term it. I remember you always had this sense of like, what should I be doing? What should I be doing? What should I be doing? And you have come a long way because you've done everything that you have been. And now it's like the journey, it's It's like the meat of it. And it's like, well, everything else was already put in place and it's time to ride the wave. Like you can't outthink. If you're a surfer, you don't think about surfing. You react to whatever waves you find. You react to the current and you enjoy it just as much. Granted, sometimes the waves are smaller and sometimes the waves are real monsters, but the journey is the important thing, and you're still surfing.
Yeah. I'm just grateful for all of it.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Oh, well, your time away was much better than mine. I don't have anything to report. Mine was just very human. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Thanks for making space to be able to have the conversation.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know, like removing the have to do's from my life, which I created. I put them in place, right? They weren't, no one else created them.
Oh yeah.
And giving myself back the space for serendipity and living, like savoring is a word that I've been using a lot. Like,
yeah.
Just savoring. It came up, and I think this was a Carlos quote as well, was like dolce far niente, and which is like that sweet, slow life, right? And it's like, yeah, like that feels really, really, really good. Like, and just being, I had this moment where there's one exercise that he had us do on the first night where the notion was to come up with a trauma. And then you start to work through that using like rapid eye movements, right? To be able to process things and go back and go back and go back and go back further. And typically when we do these exercises, there's an amount of storytelling. It's like, oh, okay, well, I'll talk about the time when I realized that I wasn't really human and I wanted to climb back inside my mother's vagina or womb. I'm like, yeah, okay, I kind of did that. And then what came up was like my DUIs. I'm like, well, that's interesting. But then there was an experience that I had had when I was roughly 8 or 9 or 10 years old that involved my father. And I was like, oh, like this is interesting. I couldn't wait to dig into it because I had completely forgotten about this. And so as I'm working with my buddy and we're partnered up and we're processing this particular event, which is like, okay, let's go back to an earlier time. Let's go back to an earlier time. And next thing you know, I'm in the back of my car or back of a car, back seat with who was presumably my mother and father. And it wasn't my mother and father from this lifetime. It was from some other expression. And this could all just be storytelling, right? But this is what was going on. And we were talking. I was sitting in the middle, no seatbelts because you weren't wearing seatbelts those days. And
oh, yeah.
my father was over here, younger, probably early 30s. My mother, a little bit younger, bright red lipstick, brunette hair. And it was raining outside. And what I saw were headlights, and my dad distracted, or my father was distracted, and he overcorrected. And we went off the bridge-ish into this ditch. We rolled over 2 times, hit a tree. My father's dead. My mom bleeds out. And I'm watching the life like leave her face. And I started crying. And then you go back and you retell the story a couple of times. So there's then more detachment or more of an observer state with this. And then I started laughing. And I was like, of course, like this is attached to this event, which was attached to these 2 events. And I was like, okay, let's just clean it up. And it was like, and process, right? And just making space for what's next and seeing how these threads go, or the samsara exists, right? And we carry the same baggage from expression to expression, and we remain attached to these outcomes or these situations or these scenarios or these people, and we're not giving ourselves an opportunity to really transcend and go beyond and keep on trucking, as Carlos would say. And so then we go back into the room and people are describing the experience, and he's like, and you, Chris, how was it? And I was just like beaming, like people are like, I was like, I'm just like so profoundly great. And he's like, okay, you got it. Like, I've got enough. It's like, and to then be able in a position, or to be in a position then to help other people do the same sort of processing was just so incredible. And it was such a great group of people. But this notion of, suppose it's possible, like that what happened to you over here is something that you're reliving or directly connected to over here. And there's some shit, some karma that needs to be worked out. But if you work it out, then you're just boom, gone, done. And you're making space for more growth and more evolution. It's like, yeah, like that felt really good. I mean, this guy is incredible, just incredible.
I'm jealous. I want that experience.
Come with me in February.
I feel like that's a yes.
Uh-huh.
Shoot me the dates. We'll even put the dates here. Who knows?
Yeah, I'll put it on.
To join us.
It's just incredible. I mean, it was such a cool experience, and getting to know them, like he and Carolina, and of course my relationship with them has gotten far more robust because of my own surrendering, if you will. And it's not them, it was a me thing. And just like, okay, right. They're not trying to butt fuck you when you're like off in the woods. Like, I mean, and even then it's like, okay, maybe, but, it's like, it's my stuff. It's my shit. And having a better understanding of just how beautiful it is. So one thing was administered, and then I went to a part of the property on which we were staying, and he was out of something else. He's like, I'll come find you in 20 minutes. I'm like, okay. I'm not attached to it. Like before, I'd be like, well, how come I didn't get as much of this as somebody else did? Like, cool. I'm just going to go to my blanket and just go hang out. And in going back to the tapes, for 26 minutes, I was expressing my gratitude for anything and everything that came to mind. 26 minutes of gratitude. And then I started chanting. And then I prostrated myself on the ground. And what I heard was, well, so then I had asked, I'm like, is there anything, because I knew that it was about an hour. So I had missed like the Carlos window of him returning. I figured he just forgot or got busy. And I said, well, before I go find him, is there anything else here that I need to clean up or clear up? Like, I want to make sure that I'm good. This is like a fireplace lesson, right? Like I'm just aligned with everything. And I want to make sure that I'm good and the direction's good. And that if there's anything I need to work on now in this state, let's go ahead and do it. And all I heard was, gratitude is the prayer of the masters.
That's profound.
Yeah. And it was silent. And I was like, okay, then we're good. And then I went off, and it was such an incredibly profound experience.
Wow. And I feel like with that, we have reached the end.
Oh, that was fast.
That was fast. Chris, thank you.
Thank you.